Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Joe, evening. Good to see you as well. Hope you're feeling better. Congratulations on episode 365. Facts. We are on episode 365. That means we've done a total of a year. Obviously, we've done more than a year on these episodes, but since we started counting them, we're on episode 365 right now, which is absolutely incredible. Good evening, Miles of CMF. Morphin, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Evening, Miles of CMF. Jason, good to see you as well. How you doing? I'm guessing Restream still hasn't fixed the count because it still says one person is watching for some reason. If you know, there is a lot more than one person right now watching. But yeah, at least the chat is fixed on Restream. I can see everybody's comments. It's not logging me out by accident. Good evening, all. Good evening, all. JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Hello, Miles of CMF. Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing as well? How you been? Okay, so a lot of things have been happening, which we're going to be covering on tonight's live. A lot of things for Ripple has also been happening. Some Trump news to go through on tonight's live. Mixture of news, as always. Comatose, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? So, welcome to the CMF Live if you're watching this for the first time ever. The CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. Now, mixture of news to go through on tonight's live. We have Trump news to cover on tonight's live. We have essentially SEC news to go through on tonight's live. We also have news regarding the person that's been removed from the Fed, some updates on that matter as well. We have some French news to go through on tonight's live, which is very relatable to the cryptocurrency sector. We also have essentially banking news to go through on tonight's live, tokenization news to go through on tonight's live, Swift news to go through on tonight's live, and also Ripple news as usual to go through on tonight's live. But the first one we are going to be covering is regarding Trump news, which is apparently we're going to be having another sort of meeting regarding tariffs, and we're going to talk about how that could possibly might impact the crypto market space, or the crypto market space could just be resilient to tariffs now, and it doesn't matter. But before we go through the first news, just want to say thank you so much to everybody who has already liked and retweeted this live. If you're watching this on X, thank you so much to everyone from the CMF who's already liked and retweeted this live. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much to also everyone who's also liked the live. If you haven't, please like and please retweet this live, CMF members. Now, before we go for the first news, let's go inside the comment section one more time. Then we go straight into the first news and then back to comments and news and so on. And let's see where we were at inside the comment section. We were at, hello Miles, good to see you guys. Hope you're fine, my friend. Let's go for facts news. Let's go, Carl. How you doing? Good evening, Miles, the CMF family. I'm glad you're back and feeling better. Let's go, Carlos. Hello, Miles T. Good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening, Miles. Been a while. Let's go, Paul. How you doing, brother? How you been? Google's new blockchain, Universal Ledger, is supposed to be in direct competition with XRP and XLM. Is Google a threat whatsoever? No, Google is not a threat whatsoever. Google is not, you could say, yes, maybe it's a competition between them, but Google's mostly, their main competition is with Circle and their newest Arc platform, you could pretty much say. But Google's just trying to play a role that's in between banks, you could also say. So it could become a competitor, but is it really a threat? No, not in any sort of a way. Good day, Miles of CMF. Mike, good to see you, brother. How you doing? Good evening, Miles of CMF family. I'm glad you're back. I hope you're feeling a lot better. Let's go, Carlos. How you doing? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Good evening, Miles of CMF. SB, good to see you, brother. How you doing? Any word on ACH or SEI? No updates on those two particular crypto projects so far. I'm glad to see you feeling better, Miles. Let's go, Scott. Good evening, Miles. How are you doing? Doing great, Callie. Good to see you as well. Slightly ill, but I'm pretty much back to normal. Now, Trump news is what we're going to cover on the first part of tonight's live. Also, just want to say one more time, this count that it's showing there's only 12 people watching, it doesn't work. The counter is completely wrong. Now it's showing 8 people are watching. I don't know what's happening with Restream. They really need to fix the viewership count. Now, Trump Trump's tariffs. Urgent meeting shakes the global trade confidence. So we've seen a meeting that just came out today with Trump announcing regarding something related to space. We've also seen essentially Chicago's essentially mayor coming out and saying they don't want Trump's National Guards in Chicago. So those announcements have been made. But apparently there's another announcement coming out, which is regarding tariff updates from Trump's perspective or Trump's administration. So a critical announcement has just been surfaced. President Donald Trump is scheduled to hold an emergency meeting tomorrow regarding tariffs. This development immediately sends ripples through the global markets, especially for those monitoring economic indicators and their potential impacts on digital assets. The very mention of a new or revised Trump tariffs initiates conversations about trade policies and economic stability worldwide. Now, tariffs in the past have had impacts on the stock market and also the crypto market space because crypto tends to follow, or Bitcoin tends to follow essentially tech stocks, which everybody else tends to follow Bitcoin due to not still having regulations. The urgency surrounding this meeting suggests significant policy discussions are on the horizon. During his previous term, President Donald Trump essentially implemented various tariffs on goods from countries like China, as well as essentially steel and aluminum imports globally. These measures were primarily aimed at protecting domestic industries and rebalancing trade deficits, often leading to what was essentially termed the trade war. The upcoming emergency meeting could signal several things. It might also involve a review of the past tariff strategies, the consideration of new tariffs on specific goods or countries, or even essentially a strict adjustment to current trade stances. The implementation of these potential Trump tariffs are vast, affecting everything from manufacturing costs to consumer prices, given the potential for significant market movements. Staying informed is pretty much key. Businesses should assess their supply chains for vulnerabilities and consider diversification strategies. Investors, particularly those in cryptocurrency spaces, should monitor their traditional market reactions to trade news, as major economic shifts could influence investor sentiments across all asset classes. Essentially, the official statements following the meeting details essentially on specific goods or countries targeted and reactions from international trade partners. These indications essentially will provide clearer insights into the immediate long-term consequences of any new Trump tariff policies or changes. The upcoming emergency meeting tomorrow that's apparently going to be happening regarding essentially tariffs is a high-stakes event with potential to reshape the trade dynamics and global economic confidence. Whether these discussions lead to new essentially impositions or essentially recalibrations of existing policies, the world will be watching closely. The ripple effects will undoubtedly essentially touch various sectors, including the volatile yet resilient cryptocurrency markets, essentially making informed vigilance more important than ever before. So apparently, it's not confirmed in any sort of a way. Tomorrow, we're also going to get another Trump appearance regarding tariff, essentially a tariff update, or essentially a tariff news on any of the new countries going to get tariffs, or current tariffs getting essentially expanded and so on, which all of them could play a role towards the crypto market space and the stock market spot, essentially, to be fairly honest. But we'd really have to see how it plays out, and we really have to see if there is actually going to be a tariff meeting tomorrow, because it's not confirmed in any sort of a way. But just keep that on your books. If you're somebody, especially who's right now futures trading inside the crypto market space, tariff news is coming tomorrow, apparently. Not financial advice whatsoever. Now, moving on from Trump's tariff policies and some tariff policies to the SEC. The SEC apparently is going to be boosting liquid staking, essentially certainty for DeFi growth. So apparently staking is no longer considered, liquid staking is no longer considered any sort of securities on that sense. So Jito Labs executive, including Lucas and Rebecca, responded to the SEC's guidance exempting liquid staking tokens from securities classification, highlighting regulatory developments in New York. The guidance prompts a surge in institutional investments and innovation within DeFi, offering market growth opportunities. The SEC's August 2025 guidance on liquid essentially staking provides crucial clarity for tokens like essentially JITSOL and essentially STETH by exempting these tokens from security classifications under specific conditions, and the move is to fuel both institutional and DeFi growth. Now that the SEC has set a very clear, essentially, roadmap, you could say, that we know that essentially liquid staking is also not considered securities, it's going to get more ETF application updates for essentially staking capabilities. So more companies will be applying in some sort of a way to add staking capabilities, or in this case, liquid staking capabilities, because it's not considered any sort of securities in that sense, which is great because it's going to bring a lot more liquidity to the table, knowing that, you know, if you invest into essentially an ETF that's going to be offering you staking capabilities, it's going to get more people interested to come towards cryptocurrencies from the traditional market space and bring their wallets with them. The guidance involves essentially key players such as Jito Labs, Solana Foundation, and Lido, who have been essentially pivotal in seeking regulatory clarity on that sense. Lucas Broader, the CEO of Jito Labs, expressed optimism reflecting stronger confidence in liquid staking technologies, and he said today's guidance on liquid staking shows the same nuanced understanding of LSD technology that the crypto task force exhibited when we meet with them on this topic back in essentially February. The immediate effect involves a significant inflow of institutional funding into liquid staking essentially platforms. Prior regulatory uncertainty and hindered such investments. TVL for platforms like Jito on Solana and Lido and essentially on Ethereum has shown essentially rapid growth post guidance. Now, financial implications also include increased liquidity for staking protocols and potential inclusions of liquid staking tokens in spot Ethereum ETFs and products. This development essentially eases previous custodians and requirements for exchanges, promoting essentially broader adoption. Regulatory decisions provide essential guidance for crypto assets and classifications, fostering legal and market stability. Such clarity essentially revolves prior unstable zones, encouraging further advancements in DeFi innovation in spaces. As a result, developers anticipate enhanced protocols and upgrades and collaborations. The historical precedent of uncertain regulations for liquid staking tokens mark them as essentially operating in a gray zone. The SEC's latest decision provides a firmer base, inducing broader participation from institutional investors and DeFi developers. As legal clarity stabilizes the environment, the technological outcome is anticipated to be very strong on that sense. So this will provide, essentially, this will create a much more bigger pool for ETFs, especially ETFs that have some sort of staking capabilities. It's great to watch essentially the SEC being a lot more lenient towards the crypto space, you know, giving more freedom to developers, especially inside the crypto space, and, you know, opening the doors to staking to pretty much, you could say, every crypto asset essentially has some sort of ETF filing if they wanted to add some sort of liquid staking to it, which is no longer considered security in any sort of a way. Incredible news in that sense. Now, before we move on to the next news, let's go inside the comment section. First, this is what's happening there, and then we go straight into the next news on tonight's live. But great news from the SEC, to be fairly honest. Now, let's see where we were at inside the conversation. As I said previously, this is live. As always, if you do have a question or comment, put it down inside the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here. I'm glad to see you're feeling better, Miles. Scott, good evening, Miles, and hope you're doing good. Callie, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hope you're doing good as well. Hi, Miles and CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? Even though XRP is up a little today, it is still in the dip and is a good purchase. I did not advise, just essentially thoughts for myself out loud. Scott, fair enough. It is still cheap, to be fairly honest, for what it's going to become. Hi, Miles, how you feeling? Hopefully better. Let's go artistic. Good to see you as well. How you doing? Feeling better than before? Yes, I will have to say. No longer any sort of blocked nose, just slight sore throat, and that's pretty much it, I would have to say. And slight headache, but it comes and goes, to be fairly honest. Hello, my friend. Scott, good to see you. How you doing? Morning, Miles of CMF. Shelly, good to see you. How you doing? Hope you're doing well to sing as well. Good to see you well. Shelly, how you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. Hope you're feeling better tonight. Addy, good to see you. How you doing? Happy Pisces, good to see you. How you doing? Let's go. Rusty, how you doing? Scott, let's go. Share the live. Let's go. Kamal, finally at home and watching the live show actually live. Let's go, Kamal. Good evening, Miles of CMF. Bull XRP, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Johnny, hi, Miles. When you think bull run start? Johnny, give a little bit of time. We're not that far off. Good evening, brother Miles of CMF family. Funky brother, good to see you. How you doing? How you feeling? Better. ACH are launching their own blockchain called Emitter Chain in Q4 2025. Should give Scott Fragrance a smile. That's facts, yeah. I mean, ACH is launching their own chain. Scott, there's good news for you. How are you feeling today, Miles of CMF? Lena, feeling better. Miles, is 5,000 XRP good amount, and can you stake my XRP for my can I stake my XRP for money. If you wanted to, you can stake your XRP. It's up to you completely. Just be aware that sometimes you would have see which option you're going to go for staking. If it's going to be lock staking, then preferably you don't want to do that, just in case of timing. Also, where you choose to stake is very important. Preferably you want to choose legitimate exchanges, Binance, Coinbase, and so on, just so you're on the safe side of staking. If you want to, and 5,000 XRP is a great amount. Hey, what's the topic? How you doing, CA? And welcome to the CMF Live. The topic is cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, Web3, and regulations. As always, is Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. Welcome to the CMF Live show. Does mean ACH worth to buy now? Does it mean ACH worth to buy now? It's completely up to you. But it is coming out quarter four. Now, 593 US economists warn that Trump's attempt to fire Cook, who is part of the Fed, threatens the central bank's independence. So, we have an update on the person that's being removed from the Fed right now. And she got 593 US economists to back her, in the sense of, if Trump does remove her from the Fed or removes anybody else from the Fed, then it destroys that independence the Fed used to have in La La Land. Because we all know where the Fed stands, and it's not neutral in any sort of a way. They always stand with a political party, and it's never going to be Trump's party. Nearly 600 economists have declared essentially alliance to the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. They all signed an open letter today warning that President Donald Trump's attempt to fire Cook threatens the central bank's independence and erodes the trust in the key pillar of the U.S. financial system. The letter addressed to Trump, members of Congress, and the American people reads, "Good economic policies requires credible monetary institutions. Credible monetary institutions, in turn, requires the independence of the Federal Reserve. We stand with Governor Cook and with the institutional safeguards that have long underpinned American economic strength." First of all, nobody voted for Lisa Cook, and nobody voted for any other member inside the Fed. Second of all, it's a private entity. And third of all, the idea that the Fed is independent in the sense of they play a neutral role is an absolute load of BS. Let's just be honest with ourselves. They for sure stand with a political party. They stand with the banks. You could obviously tell that. I mean, there was a time period where it was essentially Jerome Powell, Gary Gensler, Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, all in the same group, trying to sabotage cryptocurrencies inside the United States, trying to sabotage cryptos and banks working with each other and so on. So and you can obviously tell where they stand. They stand with the banks. The banks essentially control them. Some other parties control them as well, but it's never going to be Trump's administration that controls them, because they don't like Trump and Trump doesn't like them. And that's fairly honest. In fact, do you know why Trump's family is so big on cryptocurrencies? The only reason Trump's family and Trump himself is extremely big on the idea of cryptocurrencies is because his family was rejected from banks for a certain time period. When Trump decided to run again for presidency, banks were denying his family money. In other words, loans or mortgages or whatever, banks were denying his family money. So they saw cryptocurrencies, or Bitcoin in that sense when he started off with, as an alternative source, as alternative money, where the banks don't have a say in what they can do with their money or how much they can borrow in terms of the DeFi space. And that's the only reason Trump's family essentially decided to go pro-crypto overnight. It's because the banks denied them when they wanted loans or money or so on and so on. And that's the only reason they went essentially pro-crypto. So essentially, Jerome Powell, or the Fed in general, saying that their independence is their credibility and so on, absolutely BS. They stand with the banks. We all know that for a fact. Here's also what they went on to say. Credible monetary institutions, in turn, require independence of the Federal Reserve. We stand with Governor Cook, with the institutional safeguards that have long underpinned the American economic strength. Load of BS. Nobel Prize winners, essentially Joseph, Claudia Goldman, Alvin Roth, Paul Romer are among the 593 signatories. In addition, there are several former Federal Reserve economists among them. Ironically, there are two people inside the Fed that are against Jerome Powell's verdict on the market space. The appeal essentially was published just over a week after Trump attempted to remove a member of the Fed's board of governors. On August 25th, Trump made a public letter to Cook saying she had been fired because of an official administration and said she has committed mortgage fraud. The letter from Trump to Cook said that the accusations and the quick criminal investigations into them is essentially by his Department of Justice from the reason of Cook's firing. However, the experts who wrote the open letter today disagreed. They said that the Federal Reserve Act, which governs, which Congress passed in 1913, meant for the Fed to be separate from everyday politics. Also in the letter, it says that Trump and his staff attacks on Cook are based on unproven acquisitions. Now, in response, to the letter, the White House spokesperson Kush said today, the president acted within his lawful authority by removing Cook for cause, and this action of the arguments of the Federal Reserve's credibility and accountability for both the markets and the American people are pretty much ludicrous. Trump has been publicly pressing members of the Federal Reserve Board to lower interest rates on loans, saying that they are stopping the growth of the US economy. The Fed is expected to vote in September to lower its goal interest by 0.25%. However, Trump and his supporters want bigger changes. According to the law, the president cannot remove a governor by law except for cause. That is in terms of a legal term, that means he would have to show that person had done something wrong. In this case, she committed mortgage fraud. US Treasury yields went up also as bond markets shook up, which helped the dollar. The dollar went up 0.58% to 98.21. Against the group of important currencies, according to the monetary markets. There is a 91% chance that the US Federal Reserve will cut interest rates by 25 basis points this month. If Jerome Powell doesn't cut the rates by 25 basis points in September, believe me, Trump is going to go ballistic on Jerome Powell and the Fed. His starting game was removing Lisa Cook. His end game is going to be remove everybody from the Fed if they don't start listening to him. Trump has to show his authority in some sort of a way. And in my eyes, he didn't do it in a legal sense. He found actual criminal activity, fraud, mortgage fraud, and removed it. So it's either Jerome Powell listens to Trump and does rate cuts this month, or Trump's end goal is going to be remove everybody from the Fed somehow and replace them with people that he likes. So if the Fed wants to play games, go ahead, play games. But just remember, everybody who works in the Fed, their job is on the line right now. Now, and the idea they're doing this for the American people. How about you do rate cuts for the American people? Now, moving on from Jerome Powell and the Fed to the French. Before we talk about the French, let's go inside the comment section first, because the French news is actually going to have positive sense on the crypto side. But before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we'll go straight into that news. Let's see where we were at. We were at here. Will that be good for ACH regarding their own chain? Yes, 100%. Like, comment, and retweet everyone. Show Miles support for all the free insights that he loves to help us. Let's go. Shelly, thank you so much for the kind words and facts. If you haven't liked or retweeted this live and you're watching this on X right now, CMF members, like and retweet. If you're watching this on YouTube, also drop a like as well if you haven't. If you have, thank you so much for everyone who's liked and retweeted this live. Does these economies essentially works with the banks that wanted to stop the ripple? Yes. Are the people behind Cook mainly Democrats? Yes. What up, Miles and CMF? Hope all is well. Ray, good to see you, brother. How you doing? Shout out to Autistic JP and Pablo for commenting outside the live on X. Go to X, guys, and place a comment outside the live. It helps the algorithm. Facts. And honestly, shout out to essentially Shelly, JP, and Pablo for putting a comment outside the live on X. Thank you so much, because it does really help with the algorithm. If you haven't also put a comment outside the live on X, put a comment outside the live on X. Even Miles and family, Susie, good to see you. How you doing? Also, Ray, thank you. Ray, thank you as well, brother. Miles, which crypto do you think is most likely to partner with real-world assets and banking-related projects with XRP around November 22nd, 2025? Miles, which crypto do you think it's most likely to partner with RWA and banking related projects with XRP around 2025? Which banking partners are you referring to? Could it be Ondo or SBI? If it's Ondo, well, Ripple's already a partner of essentially Ondo. And even if it's SBI, they're still they have a partnership relationship with Ripple as well. Either way, Ripple's winning on this. To be fairly honest, both ways, Ripple's winning on this. Now, the French. Now, when it comes to the term of printing money, everybody always thinks about the US dollars. If I say to you, they're printing money again, instantly you think the Fed is printing money, liquidity entering the markets, whippy for everyone. Well, the French are about to be printing money by the looks of it, because their economy is going downhill badly. So here it is. French debt essentially is piling on top of each other and could push the European Central Bank to print more money. The debt is making headlines right now, again on both sides of the Atlantic. And Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets are ready to soar if the Fed and the European Central Bank were to turn on their printing machines. The Prime Minister is holding a series of talks this week with political parties to avoid the collapse of his government. Macron's government, or Macron's country, is about to be collapsing if he doesn't do anything about it. 2 years ago, I said essentially France is on the verge of collapsing if they don't do anything about it quick. And then you fast forward to 2 years from when I said this to now, France decided within that 2 years, instead of fixing their debt issue, to increase giving money to Ukraine and open their country's doors to illegal immigrants, which caused more disruptions and essentially wasted a lot more money that they didn't have in the first place. So France had 2 years to maybe do something positive for their people, and instead decided to dig even further into the ground where it's just now too difficult to climb out of. The Prime Minister is holding a series of talks this week, political parties, to avoid the collapse of his government. The goal is to find common ground to return to a budget deficit below 3% of their GDP by 2029. In the short term, the 6.1% GDP budget deficit must fall to 5%, essentially starting the ending of last year this year. Now, the budgetary efforts required is 60 billion euros, including about 40 billion. Through public spending cuts. Over 200 years, France has accumulated a debt of 3.3 billion euros, amounting to around 114% of their GDP. Now, it increases by about $160 billion per year. Of this ground total, essentially of 1.115 billion, which essentially was accumulated since Emmanuel Macron was elected essentially back in 2017. So since Macron became the Prime Minister of France until now is when France started going downhill in terms of their budget. As a result, interest now accounts for more than 60 billion euros per year. It could become the nation's biggest budget this year if rates do not fall again. Problem is, the opposition parties are not satisfied with essentially the strategy and the plan to overthrow the government in the September 8th vote. The European Central Bank president warned about the worrying risk of government collapse. The reason being that it is very likely to result in the rise essentially in borrowing rates. France's 10-year rate is currently around 3.50%, the highest since 2011. It is as high as Greece right now, and that despite the European Central Bank having lowered its rates, its key rate fell from 4.50% in September 2023 to 2.15% today. Christian Lagarde said she was watching France's borrowing cost very closely, but what could she essentially do if French government is censored on essentially September 8th? As a reminder, the European Central Bank holds about 25% of European public debt. It's 23% in the United States. Yes, the European Central Bank brought a quarter of the European public debt through its asset purchase programs. That means governments no longer pay interest on 25% of their debt. The reason that the interest received by the European Central Bank is redistributed to national central banks, which in return essentially redistributes into the United States. Put differently, the US government does not pay $1,000 billion in essentially interest, as often is stated, but 750 billion. Same in France, it's not 67 billion, but rather 50 billion. Having said that, the question is whether the European Central Bank could restart quantum easing if French rates were to soar. The answer is yes on the side. Nothing stops central banks from running the printing press once again. The fact that Donald Trump is attacking the Fed even suggests that this is precisely his ambition. That the US 10-year rate is at 4.22%. But there is no miracle in the end. Easing debt will always result in more inflation if GDP grows, or if GDP's growth does not follow. Allowing essentially states to increase the money supply much faster than economic production will ultimately lead to a general rise in prices. Thus, increasing productivity, production per person is difficult, essentially, in a word, past its conventional oil peak back in 2007, for example. Innovations like AI right now or quantum computers are full of potentially promise. But while we wait for them to really materialize, the observation is that the growth continues to slow down, decade after a decade, because of physical limits to growth. For example, oil production growth went from 7% a year back in the 1900s to 1970 to less than 1% today. While on the other side, the money supply keeps climbing as much as a higher pace of 7% per year. It is hard for a government to cut spending. Better to print money, as legendary investor Ray Dalio wrote in June, and he said, when countries have too much debt, lowering interest rates and devaluing their currency, that is, the debt is denominated in its essentially preferred path government policymakers are most likely to take, so it pays to the bet on the happening, said the founder essentially of a giant investment fund, Bridgewater. And to lower interest rates, you have to print via quantum easing. This is the key word to watch over the coming months, that we might be hearing news from the US or France in this sense, or the European Central Bank, that they're about to be turning on their printing machines to print more money. And if they do that, then we could definitely see a boost inside the crypto market space. This is the key word in that sense for the coming months, quantum essentially easing, especially from May, from Donald Trump replaces the Fed chairman. Now, secure your cryptos essentially as soon as you can, because you don't want to keep your cryptocurrencies on exchanges. Coming to the subject that interests us, yet another quantum of essentially easing would be bullish for cryptocurrencies. Historically, all assets rally during these monetary easing policy moments. Every time the Fed turns on the printing machine, we see a boost, not straight away overnight, but we see a boost happening as time progresses through on the crypto side. In short debt, essentially in short term, debt puts France and Europe facing a dilemma. Cutting public spending by 40 billion euros as planned risk essentially casual social and political tensions, and even more so if essentially France's government fails. Restarting quantum easing would contain borrowing costs, but it would essentially be an admission of weakness. Moreover, the printing press benefits those rich enough to own prestige real estate, art objects, or good stocks and market deals or cryptocurrencies. So people who are holding alternative assets are going to win when the European Central Bank turn on their printing machine. If you hold alternative assets, you're on the winning side. In other words, if you're holding cryptocurrencies and the European Central Bank is about to be turning their printing machines, you're going to be winning. This is why essentially crypto will certainly be the big winner if central banks act again. In the rarest asset in the world, while being accessible to all, regardless of size of one's savings, French debt amounts to 3.345 billion euros, or 114%. Facing budget overruns, the rise in French borrowing rates could force the European Central Bank to monetize their debt. The fiat system is a Ponzi categorized by exceptional growth of the money supply, very promising for crypto, the only absolute anti-inflationary asset accessible to the masses. So, the European Central Bank is about to be turning on their printing machines. If the European Central Bank turns on their money printing machine, then it's going to lead to the Fed also turning on their printing essentially machine as well. Not straight away, but thereafter, which is going to be boosting the crypto market spaces. So for all the downside we've had inside the crypto space, not drastic downside in market space, but we've had our downs where the house has to win before we have our next up. Seems like they're about to be turning on their essentially printing machines. So we can see a boost happening. If we get the European Central Bank to turn on their printing machines, and then the Fed to turn on their printing machines this month, and then we get rate cuts this month, and we get a Clarity Act this month, it's going to be fireworks. Pretty much fireworks inside the crypto space. Now, let's go start a conversation before we go for the next news. The next news is regarding tokenization. So let's see what's happening inside the conversation first before we go for the next news. Let's see where we were at. We were at here. She committed mortgage fraud. Could it be? Oh, she committed mortgage fraud. She's not above the law. She deserves to get fired. Anybody else would have been in prison by now. Facts. Let's go, Joe. Hi, Miles of CMF. Peg, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Facts, brother. Let's go, Ray. Good evening, Miles of CMF. Manny, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Let's go, Scott. Hi, Miles of CMF. Please like. Miles is awesome. Thank you, Golden Jungle, for saying that. Please like and essentially like and comment if you already haven't, and retweet. This is Africa Effect taking place. Where will you go when you die? Heaven or hell? Follow Jesus and be saved. Thank you, Shadow Inc., for that explicit comment. Afternoon, Miles and CMF peeps. Semper, good to see you as well. How you doing? Now, thank you for the comment, Shadow Inc. We need the machines to be turned on. The printing machines, yes. By the looks of it, France has no choice but to turn on their printing machines. Well, the European Central Bank has no choice but to turn on their printing machines for France, because what's holding the European Central Bank together, you can pretty much say, the Europe in general, is essentially Germany, France, Spain, Italy is technically what's holding Europe together in terms of money, because the rest of the countries don't bring much to the table. But France, Germany, Italy, and Spain do bring something to the table. And if one of their, main countries, in this case is France, is not doing too well for the longest time, if they don't print and don't save France, then France could collapse. Their government could collapse, which would cause a ripple effect inside the market space. And I don't think they'll let Macron, go down like Titanic, for example, because the European Central Bank loves Macron, to be fairly honest. Nobody knows why, but they do. I don't think they'll let him drown in any sort of way. So their only option is to turn on the printer machines. Now, smart gold is what we're going to talk about next. Smart gold, Chintai tokenizes $1.6 billion in IRI gold for DeFi collateral. Apparently what's going on right now. Tokenization platform Chintai Nexus announced its partnerships with the US gold IRA provider Smart Gold, successfully bringing on $1.6 billion of vaulted physical gold on chain. The initiative marks the first compliant tokenization solution especially designed for self-directed IRAs, creating essentially a one-to-one digital representation of the held bullion golds. Notably, it bridges traditional essentially and physical assets into the dynamic realm of decentralized finance. The essentially machines of the offerings are designed to navigate a complex regulatory environment. Investors first purchase and store physical gold bullions through Smart Gold self-directed IRA. Then Chintai Nexus essentially tokenizes these specific holdings on its regulated platforms, minting essentially a digital representation that is pegged one-to-one, the vaulted metal. This token essentially acts as a certified claim on the physical asset, which remains fully insured and audited in secure custody. Tokenized IRA assets can be deployed as collateral on decentralized finance lending protocols, such as Morpho and Cameo, opening up essentially access to billions of dollars in liquidity while the underlying bullion remains vaulted and insured. For essentially retirement savers and essentially a constant to passionately of gold holdings, the ability to unlock liquidity without jeopardizing the account's tax-deferred essential status represents a perceived upside. Smart Gold Managing Director, essentially Aaron Haley, framed this development as a fundamental shift for the asset class. He stated that for decades, gold investors were forced to make a difficult choice between security and yield, noting that the partnership is transforming the ultimate safe haven asset into a powerful, productive tool for building wealth. The move was essentially preceded by a critical infrastructure upgrade from Chintai. In mid-August, the platform adopted the Chainlink cross-chain interoperability protocol and integrated Chainlink's or Coral infrastructure. This provides the necessary institutional-grade frameworks for secure cross-chain transfers and reliable data feeds, which are essential for ensuring regulatory compliance, automating audits, and maintaining verifiable proofs of reserves for tokenized assets on the scale of nature. So, Chintai is about to be essentially, tokenizing gold, and how it works is someone will buy a certain amount of gold bullions. They will essentially be the ones tokenizing it, but the company behind it will be the ones storing the gold for you. And it's pretty much a market space of $1.6 billion of gold to be tokenized. Not all of it is going to be tokenized overnight. It's what people purchase that gets tokenized in a sense. But brilliant news. The idea of essentially more market spaces connecting to the blockchain space, incredible. And Chainlink is a part of this, so well done to Chainlink on that sense. Now, Kraken Exchange is what we're going to talk about next. So the idea of tokenized stocks is something that's been discussed for the longest time inside the crypto space. And it's something that banks also love, the idea of tokenization. Also, institutions love the idea of tokenization. Well, tokenizing stocks has been one of the biggest things that's just been going around for the longest time. And well, here is an update on that sense. Kraken launches tokenized US stocks on Ethereum via X stocks. Crypto exchange Kraken and Swiss tokenization firm Bakkt announced on essentially today that they will bring tokenized US stocks to Ethereum blockchain through a product called X stocks. According to reports, that is expected to allow non-US Kraken to trade stocks like Apple, Tesla, Nvidia on Ethereum in a form of an ERC20 token. Traders will be able to deposit and withdraw X stocks directly on Ethereum, the largest blockchain for decentralized finance, which is currently holds around $107 billion in assets according to DeFi Llama. Each token will be backed one-to-one by real stocks or ETF. This means that every token in circulation, there will be matching stocks held as collateral. The expansion makes Ethereum the fourth blockchain to host X stocks, because Ethereum wasn't their first choice. They actually started with Solana, BNB, and Tron, and now they've added essentially Ethereum. Kraken explained that this aimed to tap into bigger pools of liquidity and connect thousands of apps already running on the network. The company also highlighted the 24/7 trading of essentially availabilities, and it offers more flexibility compared to traditional stock markets. Kraken's co-CEO essentially said Ethereum is the next logical step after Solana, BNB, and Tron for the firm's multi-chain strategy to ensure tokenized equities are accessible across ecosystems, portable essentially between wallets and protocols, and essentially composable within the applications users already trust. Bakkt co-founder Roberto essentially also explained that Ethereum offers a deeper connection to established DeFi protocols through the expansion of X stocks to Ethereum's mainnet. X stocks taps into largest pools of on-chain liquidity and connects to the most essentially established DeFi protocols inside the space. Since its launch in June, X stocks has generated over $3.5 billion in combined trading volume across exchanges, according to the company itself. Bakkt also announced that the product surpassed $500 million in on-chain transactions and volumes just over 49 days after its debut. Still, some industry's voices said the numbers are small compared to the other crypto market spaces. Kraken itself remains one of the largest US-based exchanges, recording a $1.5 billion revenue and $664 billion in trading volume in 2024, with recent daily activity hitting $1.3 billion according to CoinGecko. So, StockX already essentially does, essentially tokenization of stocks on Solana, BNB, and Tron. Decide to add Ethereum to their essentially the next option they offer to their client bases. Obviously, they're going to be expanding into other chains as well. But again, great to see the, essentially the traditional market space once again connecting to the digital market space or expanding in that sense. Now, moving on from that to China is what we talk about next. Before we talk about China, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we'll go straight into the China news. Let's see what's happening. We need the machines to be turned on. So you all unjabbed, good luck with your investments. So you all unjabbed, good luck with your investments. Thank you. I see it as a compliment if you're unjabbed. To be fairly honest, I'll be honest, I'm very proud of being unjabbed. I don't bend over easily or ever, to be fairly honest, for governments. But if you feel like you want to bend over for governments, that's totally up to you. Share the live. Let's go. ACHD government investors, DFW Labs, Northbound Capital, Alpha Coin Fraud. Let's go. FYI. Hello, Miles. My friends says that it is very supposed to be XRP that is one, but it's not anymore, and other cryptos will outperform XRP. What's your comment on that? Harris, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Your friend is telling you that XRP is not the one, or anymore, and that other cryptos are the ones to be better than XRP. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, but opinions are not facts, and facts are facts. Stick to the facts, you'll be better off. Everybody can have an opinion. I can have an opinion about something. You can have an opinion about something. Your friends, family members, work colleagues, they can also have an opinion about everything. But just look at the facts. Look at contracts, look at licensing, look at who they're working with. And that should be more than enough for you to come up with some sort of a verdict on are they did the best or are they not the best. It's completely up to you, to be fairly honest. But as I've always said, for me, there's no other project out there that I see that's going to be revolutionizing pretty much the financial industry other than XRP, to be fairly honest. I mean, Ripple has the highest reach, in my point of view, when it comes to essentially, and even on an international basis, to be fairly honest. And there's a lot of hate going around right now on XRP, to be fairly honest as well, which we're going to get into a little bit later on regarding the hate on XRP, because there's so much of hate going around right now on XRP. Hi, Miles and CMF. George, good to see you. How you doing? XLM has Stripe, MoneyGram, IBM, Franklin Templeton, PayPal, Grayscale Investments, Dilute. Facts. Miles, 24 hours timeout. I saw a video explaining that if you are jabbed, there is something that is liquid that will connect with the liquid digital ID chip. It will not necessarily be a chip under the skin. It could be a liquid injection that connects with the liquid. Many people received, so good luck to those people, I say. Let's go with Pisces. Now, moving away from the jabs. Sorry about the jab comment as well. State-owned company in China. I'm a bit ill. I'm on medication right now, and sorry about that. State-owned company in China chooses altcoin network to issue digital bonds. A fully state-owned enterprise operating in Shenzhen, China, has issued the world's first public RWR real-world assets digital bond on Ethereum's blockchain. The transaction conducted in Hong Kong involved the launch of 500 billion yuan, about $69 million, worth of offshore RMB, essentially bonds. The bonds have a 2-year maturity, essentially on a coupon rate of 2.62%. This issuance follows the company's successful completion of its first international bond issuance, essentially in this year. The company has taken a significant step in RWA fields by closely monitoring trends in international financial markets. Officials state that this move will help the company expand its global finance channels, optimizing to capitalize the structure and leverage Hong Kong's policy advantages. Furthermore, according to the official statements, this development reinforces Shenzhen's leading essential role in finance and serves as an example for integrating initiative financing and mechanisms and digital technologies. The company stated that they will continue to work in line with their high-quality development goals, acting with a spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship in the future. So China is getting more involved, you could say, inside the crypto space. We talked about China essentially on Friday. We talked about China essentially expanding into the market space even more on the crypto side. They're thinking about introducing stablecoin regulations. They're thinking about expanding through Hong Kong side first, and then maybe open their doors even domestically if they essentially internationally if they have to, if they don't want to do domestically first. But it does seem like China is expanding in some sort of a way, you could say. Now, putting China to one side, which adds a lot of liquidity to the table whenever China does open their doors. We're going to talk about Coinbase and OKX Exchange and Australia. So, Coinbase and OKX target Australia's $2.8 trillion pension pool. Coinbase Global and OKX are preparing products to tap into Australia's pension pool, containing $2.8 trillion in one of the world's best regulated retirement systems. Two of the largest centralized exchanges aim to redirect some of their retirement money into cryptocurrencies, deepening the connection between crypto and mainstream finance. The initial connection with crypto will be the newly introduced, essentially, superannuation funds, or SMSs, essentially, which make up around 25% of Australia's pension pool. The funds rely on selected investments, giving individuals decision-making power over their retirement portfolios. Regular Australian pension pools have avoided crypto so far, with no signs of adopting those types of assets anytime soon. It does not make sense that we're probably seeing essentially a bit more interest in crypto in self-managed super fund essentially space first, said Fabian, technical manager essentially at the SMSF Association, cited by Bloomberg. Perhaps the larger funds will catch up over time. Crypto adoption in pensions is still in its initial stages. Through UK, essentially, investors have taken essentially up the potential of digital assets, as Cryptopolitan reported earlier. To tap into Australia's market, Coinbase will launch a dedicated SMSF service, which already has 500 investors on its waiting list. OKX launched a similar point of access in June, also showing significant essentially demand, and said Kate Cooper, chief executive of OKX Australian arm. Crypto holdings in SMSFs remain relatively low, the equivalent of $1.1 billion, based on essentially Australia's tax office data. However, Australian essentially investors have expanded their holdings significantly since the initial forays into 2021. Both Coinbase and OKX expect asset essentially acquisitions will expand as institutional funds and regulators become more comfortable with crypto exposure. As of 2025, AMP is the only major Australian pension provider for crypto-based exposures. The Coinbase and OKX products are tailored to buy and hold investors rather than active traders. The exchanges will help investors to establish their own SMSF, essentially with legal and accounting help. Establishing the SMSF essentially has a significant administration cost, including independent audits, so the crypto investors may only be viable for larger accounts. Coinbase has been preparing for their SMSF essentially service since 2024 and will roll out the full product in the coming months. The potential clients essentially for the waiting list show an 80% probability of establishing a new SMSF, while 77% plan to invest up to $65,000, which is around 100,000 Australian dollars in digital assets. Coinbase essentially approach aims to tap newer generations of investors who are often essentially crypto natives and more comfortable with picking their own investments. Younger investors open SMSF essentially years earlier than previous generations and allocate more digital assets to that. The Australian Securities and Investment Commission still urges caution and avoiding overexposure due to volatility. Australia's regulators essentially are also vigilant about their crypto crime, recently ordering Binance Holdings Ltd to appoint an external auditor on its local arm. Australia essentially overhauled its crypto regulations framework early in 2025, though it still essentially remains the momentum as of the global crypto essentially hotspots. Both Coinbase and OKX have attempted to stay within the boundaries of crypto essentially regulations, as it would allow them to tap into inflows from much more liquidity than traditional market centers. So Australia essentially is getting targeted right now by Coinbase and OKX exchange to, for Australian pensions to go towards cryptocurrencies, which is a market space of roughly $2.8 trillion. So a $2.8 trillion market space could be getting tokenized through Coinbase essentially and OKX exchange. They're going to be offering people the choice of which crypto projects I'm guessing they want to go for, because they're both crypto exchanges. Brilliant to see. As I said, traditional market space is connecting to the digital landscape. Now, what we're going to talk about next is a crucial topic, because there's something that's going around today, which is Swift. But before we talk about Swift, let's go start a conversation first, and then we'll talk about Swift. Let's see where we're at. Ray, let's go. This is great for Australia. Let's go. Shelley, self-managed super funds. I have a friend that already does this himself and invests in crypto, but it's difficult to do and report at the same time. This is terrific for our super funds. Let's go. Shelley, facts. Now, I'm guessing all of you or some of you have seen this particular news go around today, where essentially a Swift boss or someone that essentially is a part of Swift says that banks won't trust Ripple. Essentially, banks won't trust Ripple. is what somebody from Swift said. Now, let's go through what they said and what the actual essentially perspective, and what perspective I have on that sense. So this is what was going around today on essentially X. And let's just be clear, the hate against essentially Ripple is, or XRP is just getting ridiculous at this point, to be fairly honest. And I'm sure everybody's fed up with all of a sudden overnight, some people decided to hate on XRP because, first we had the Bitcoin maxis. And then we had, a long time ago, we had Ethereum versus XRP. And then we had Bitcoin versus XRP. And now we have Chainlink versus XRP. And now is also we have, Zach XBT essentially against XRP. And then we have Michael Saylor, who's always against XRP because he thinks Bitcoin is the better choice. And now we have somebody from Swift essentially saying that, there's no point of Ripple whatsoever. And then you also have the moronic influences in between who just like to weigh their moronic opinions. But let's go about, regarding the Swift situation. So, writing on his LinkedIn, Zach Sharp dismissed Ripple's essentially legal survival as a proof of strength. So they're saying essentially, regarding Ripple's legal status of XRP means nothing. That XRP was declared by a judge in itself is not a security, doesn't mean anything whatsoever. Ripple's legal survival is a proof of strength. And they say also that Ripple surviving everything doesn't also mean anything either. Instead, emphasizing that financial institutions want infrastructure free from corporate control. I just want to point this out. His own words, or essentially what's altered to, mentioning that essentially financial institutions want infrastructure free from corporate control. Because we all know Swift is so open-minded and nobody controls it. And that Swift obviously doesn't go around and sanction countries, but we're going to get to that. Surviving lawsuits isn't resilience, said essentially Zach Sharp. He wrote, adding that banks prefer neutral shared governance because we all know Swift is neutral. Or is it? Because it goes around and sanctions central banks. There's a reason why BRICS was created, and it wasn't mostly created to go against the US dollars, but it was created to go against SWIFT as an alternative payment system between BRICS nations. But we're going to get to that. So rather than operating on a competitor's rails, unlike Ripple, SWIFT is jointly governed by thousands of members of banks, a structure, he argued, fosters industry-wide trust. So you're telling me SWIFT has ultimate trust, that everybody supports SWIFT, that everybody supports SWIFT, everybody trusts SWIFT, every bank around the world trusts SWIFT, every country around the world trusts SWIFT. So why is it that there are essentially so many countries deciding to join BRICS to remove themselves, not also from the US dollars, but also to remove themselves from a payment messaging standard who goes around and sanctions central banks? So why is it that essentially, based on the latest information, there are currently 11 BRICS members so far. And these BRICS members not only want to get away from the US dollars, but they also want to get away from SWIFT. Because SWIFT one day can turn around and sanction their central banks if they say something they're not supposed to. So, and in SWIFT's words, everybody trusts them. They are a neutral party. They don't do anything wrong. But yet they go around sanctioning countries. So here it is, 11 BRICS members, for example, countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia, in addition to the full members in a new category of BRICS and partners countries, also adding in now Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Nigeria, Thailand, Uganda, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, the list goes on. So if SWIFT is such a lovable company, such a neutral party that everybody loves and nobody's against because they play a neutral role, but they go around sanctioning countries, hence why over 40 plus countries want to leave it behind. But I'm guessing SWIFT, the member that works at SWIFT, forgot to mention all of the countries that are about to be leaving SWIFT once they move on to a new payment system of their own. Because they're not only moving away from the US dollars, they're moving away from SWIFT that goes around and sanctions these particular countries. That overnight causes collapses essentially in their countries. So just to go on more, because I've seen this post on X and it frustrated me when I read it, and there are morons tweeting this out going, see, Swift doesn't like Ripple either. Well, of course Swift doesn't like Ripple. They're competitors, you moron. So Z-Shards also challenged the idea that compliance simply means working with watchdogs. True compliance, he said, requires building systems where an entire sector agrees on common standards, something Ripple, in his view, cannot provide as a single company solution, and what Swift can. Again, sanctioning. While acknowledging the innovation in blockchain technology, Z-Short dismissed the idea that public chains alone could carry global finance. Without enforceability, privacy, and regulatory alignments, he described them as fast engines with no co-pilot. Hence why he could also do it on a private chain, but I'm guessing he's new to blockchain. His stance suggests traditional finance will borrow from blockchain where useful, but only on its own terms. Ripple maintains that XRP Ledger is decentralized through critics have long argued that the company essentially retains outsized influence over its ecosystem. Z-Short comments play directly into that narrative, highlighting why banks may hesitate to adapt to Ripple's relays despite its growing regulatory wins. Interesting that Swift is saying that Ripple is controlling the XRP ledger, but Swift is being controlled by the United States government, who goes around and sanctions countries. Now, I'm all pro-US and I will always be pro-US. But really? That's how you're going to play it? Saying something against Ripple, which is not true in any sort of a way, because XRP Ledger is decentralized. There's always going to be elements of centralization on any blockchain, to be fairly honest. But the idea of Swift trying to play this role of we're the angels in this scenario, no, you're not. You're the Satans of this scenario. There are many reasons why they're moving away from Swift and why BRICS nations decide to create their own alternative payment systems. It's not just, as I said, to get away from US dollars. It's to get away from companies like Swift. Because one day those countries might also be sanctioned as well. And that's the last thing on their minds. They don't want that to be happening. It's the first thing on their minds, but it'll become the last thing on their minds when they move away from Swift. So just want to point this out. The people that are posting right now saying even Swift said Ripple is this and that, or it's useless, or it doesn't mean anything because Ripple won against the SEC in a long-term battle. Yes, it does, first of all. Don't belittle what Ripple went through and held its ground in the top 5 and top 10 whilst battling the SEC, going through bear markets and bull markets. Still held this position, still signed the most amount of contracts, still got licenses internationally. So don't ever try to belittle what essentially Ripple went through. Second of all, Swift, out of everyone, coming out saying, we're neutral. We don't essentially criticize anybody. We're the neutral party. We're Switzerland of payment systems or messaging standards. You're the Satan of payment systems and messaging standards. So the idea of essentially Swift in any sort of a way of playing neutral, forget about it. Nobody's buying it. If anybody is buying Swift is being neutral all this time, BS. You're either blind or too stupid to realize it. Now, and the reason why Swift hates them, it just shows that they're scared of them. For Swift to even go out of their way, to criticize Ripple, it shows that they are scared of them. And it shows that Swift is weak. Because if Ripple was a nobody, if XRP Ledger was useless, why even mention it? Why would Swift even have to go out of their way to mention Ripple? Why would they even have to go out of their way to essentially criticize XRP? If XRP is nothing, if Ripple's case was nothing, if Ripple is a nobody, why even go out of your way to mention them? Because they are a somebody, because they are your competitors, and because one day they will crush you and they will replace you. And that's what you're afraid of. Because if they're a nobody, why even mention them? Why go out of your way and criticize them? Because you're threatened by them. Because if they're a nobody, you wouldn't even bother mentioning them. But the reason why Swift is mentioning them is because they are a somebody. Somebody that's going to crush them somewhere later on. Now, honestly, for all the idiots that were reposting what Swift said and saying, oh, look, Swift is saying it as well. Of course they're going to say that. They're competitors. What do you think they're going to do? Pat Ripple on the back and say, well done. Honestly, the people that were retweeting it and saying, oh, you know, Swift has said the same thing, Ripple's useless and so on. They're competitors. I've said this from day one. They're not going to be coming in essentially and playing friendly. Ripple's coming in for a takeover, and I can't wait for it to happen. But yeah, it was just too funny, honestly. They expected Swift to give Ripple a pat on the back and say, well done. They're competitors. Of course, they're going to, you know, essentially be against them. But to go out of the way to criticize them, that just shows that you are afraid of Ripple. Because if they're nobody, you wouldn't even mention them. But that means they are somebody that you're threatened by. Now, also, ETF experts says, don't underestimate XRP and Solana ETF approvals also. Nate Gorsey, co-founder of essentially ETF Institutes and president of ETF Store, stated in a post today that investors' interest is being underestimated. People are seriously, this is what Nate Gorsey said, people are seriously underestimating investors' demand for XRP and Solana ETFs. Nate Gorsey saying this, by the way, saying people are underestimating XRP's ETFs. Nate Gorsey argued that just as Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs were underestimated before their launch, the same applies to XRP. The SEC is currently essentially reviewing numerous XRP ETF applications. These applications are essentially a part of more than just 90 ETF products awaiting approval. Last week, also, approximately half of the XRP ETF applications received updates from Bloomberg intelligence analyst James and Gorsey, who called this development a positive sign. Predictions are also growing stronger according to Polymarket data. The probability of XRP ETF approvals has increased by 16% in the last 24 hours, reaching 87%. Bloomberg ETF analysts, on the other hand, had projected a 95% probability of approval in August. Earlier this year, JP Morgan's analysts predicted that the XRP ETFs could be seen essentially up to $8 billion in inflows within a year. Canary Capital CEO, also Steve, made a more ambitious prediction last week, predicting that $5 billion of inflows in the first month for XRP. By comparison, Bitcoin ETFs attracted approximately $2 billion within the first 3 days alone. Ethereum, not much. These expectations are also based on existing XRP-based investment products. Leverage, essentially XRP ETF launch also in April, has assumed over $353 million in net assets, outperforming the company's traditional agriculture ETFs. So Nate Gorsey is also coming out and saying pretty much XRP ETFs, don't underestimate XRP ETFs. Big things are coming for XRP. On that note, Tunos and Ripple tighten the grip on cross-border blockchain payments. Payments network Tunos is doubling down on its partnership with US-based Ripple, injecting blockchain relays deeper into its global payment system. Building on a 2020 deal, Ripple's infrastructure will now power real-time local currency settlements across 90-plus markets, targeting regions where banks still move slower than the internet. And according to Swift, nobody's going to use Ripple. Nobody's going to use the XRP ledger. According to the press release, Tunos is leveraging blockchain and digital assets technology to enhance its network, with Ripple's solution driving more efficient and accessible payments for financial institutions and businesses worldwide. Ripple's enterprise customers can now more easily withdraw funds in new currencies and countries. With a reach of over 130 countries, Volos essentially is betting the blockchain isn't just faster, it's eventable. With Ripple now embedded into its backbone via Ripple Payments, the network's infrastructure takes a definite step beyond legacy relays. Ripple's platform currently supports almost 100 payout platforms, covering more than 90% of its daily FX volume, and claims to essentially have processed over $70 billion to date. This integration allows Ripple's institutional clients to tap into local markets with greater speed and fewer intermediaries. Chloe, president and COO, essentially at Tunos, said members across both the traditional finance space and the essentially digital asset ecosystem connect with Tunos, and essentially are in prime position to bridge essentially these digital assets, and our alliance with Ripple underscores this. By supporting real-time settlements and deeper local integrations, we are enabling digital asset companies to deliver seamless compliance and accessible cross-border payments at scale. Tinos is also wiring Ripple Tech into a smart X Treasury system, a move that blurs the line between decentralized relays and corporate-grade finance. Fiona Murray, the essentially managing director, Asia Pacific at Ripple, said, "We are committed to reshaping the future of global payments through blockchain technology. Our partnership with Tinos accelerates our shared mission to improve the efficiency, speed, and security of global payments." Murray explained that by combining Tinos extension and trusted direct global essentially networks with Ripple digital asset infrastructures, they are enhancing payment speed, accessibility, and compliance across regions. As legacy banking systems limp behind, both firms are essentially muscling into a remittance lane with blockchain in their driver's seat. This partnership not only facilitates seamless, low-cost transactions, but also supports the growing demand for innovation, blockchain-powered financial solutions globally. The expanded partnership puts Tinos and Ripple on a direct path to rewrite how money moves and who controls it, the flow. Vivo Power taps Doppler Finance for XRP and USD yield programs. Again, according to Swift, nobody's going to use it. Vivo Power International PLC, NASDAQ, under the ticker of VVPR, announced today a definitive agreement with Doppler Finance to deploy $30 million into institutional yield programs on the XRP ledger. The strategy will cover essentially on the XRP ledger. This strategy will cover both XRP and USD assets, according to the company. Vivo Power believes that the initiative pilot tranche of $30 million to generate yield on the XRP treasury holdings can grow in excess of up to $200 million. Again, according to Swift, nobody's going to use XRP, no institution. The initiative essentially leverages Doppler Finance's audited institutional grade infrastructure to generate yield on digital holdings. Vivo Power said returns will be structured as reinitiated loop, with profits systematically reinvested into the company's reserves to compound long-term shareholder value. Doppler Finance essentially is backed by Reforge, Digital Currency Group DCG, and other Ripple affiliated entities. The program expands Vivo Power's digital treasury strategy beyond its core business, its electric car vehicle solutions, and renewable essentially power projects. Kevin Chin, the executive chairman and CEO of Vivo Power, highlighted South Korea as a key target market since the country is making global efforts for the sector with an estimated 20% of circulating supply, totaling $30 billion of XRP held in South Korea. It is strictly essentially a very important market for our overall digital assets, essentially treasury and decentralized finance DeFi solution strategy, said Chin in the announcement. Just to repeat that one more time, with an estimated 20% of the circulating supply totaling $30 billion of XRP held in South Korea, it is strictly a very important market for our overall digital asset strategy and digital finance. So, obviously, according to Swift, nobody's going to use XRP. So, Vivo Power's CEO is obviously lying. And the other company that I just shared with you, essentially, Tinos and Ripple partnering is obviously a lie also. Nobody likes Ripple. No institution likes Ripple. Nobody wants to use Ripple. Nobody wants to use the XRP ledger. Nobody wants to use XRP. It's all lies. Obviously, Swift is telling the truth. Swift are morons. And anybody else that's backing Swift right now, you're also a moron as well. Just to be fair. On that note, honestly, I have to make it very clear. The hate on XRP is getting quite ridiculously strong. You know, not only do we have blockchains, Litecoin, for crying out loud, Litecoin is a dinosaur inside the crypto space, comes out of nowhere and just starts, you know, hating on XRP for no apparent reason. Honestly, you know, the list of hate on XRP from blockchains is ridiculous. But from the influencers, well, influencers have no dignity or morals, to be fairly honest. The majority of influencers get paid to hate on XRP. And the ones that do for free, they're just doing it because they're doing it for clickbait and they're bored, or they think they're the most intelligent person in the room, where in fact they're the most dumbest person in the room if they're going up against XRP, to be fairly honest. So for all the influencers out there that think, you know, XRP has no future, or Ripple has no future, or the XRP ledger has no future, or USD has no future inside the institutional sector, or inside the banking fields, international basis, and you think you are, smart for saying XRP has no future, Ripple has no future, nobody uses XRP, and you think you are an intelligent person for making those tweets or saying those things out loud, you're not the most smartest person in the room. You're honestly the most dumbest person in the room, looking for likes and comments just so you can feel happy about yourself. And on the other side note, also, if you are somebody that's being paid by Chainlink to promote Chainlink as if it's better than XRP Ledger, nowhere near. Honestly, the comparison between XRP and Chainlink, as I said before, is like a Rolls Royce comparing to a skateboard. There's no comparison between the whatsoever. And if you're a moron that's tweeting out what Swift has said, Swift is a competitor to Ripple. Of course, they're not going to say, well done, Ripple, let me pat you on the back. They're of course going to be hating on Ripple. But for Swift to go out of their way to hate on Ripple, it shows that they don't essentially they see Ripple as a threat. If Swift is going out of their way to tweet against Ripple, it shows that they are threatened by Ripple. And that's facts. If you're threatened by someone, you talk about them. If you're not threatened by someone, you don't even mention them. Because that's how it works in the institutional sector. If you're threatened by someone and you feel like someone's reaching your level or is at your level, of course you're gonna say something about them. But if somebody's not at your level, why would you even mention them? So that means Ripple is at their level, XRP Ledger is at their level, and they're threatened about what they're going to bring to the table. Just wait for the XRP ETF's floodgates to open up. Just wait for the regulations to come through and see how much XRP is going to essentially pave its way through the financial sector. Nobody's going to be able to stop what's coming. The banks aren't going to be able to stop it. Swift, the dinosaur, isn't going to be able to stop it. And for anybody that's getting paid by Chainlink right now to go against XRP, you're pathetic and you have no morals or dignity. I've been offered money countless times from stupid crypto projects to some companies saying, back our project. Not once have I said yes. But I mean, I guess everybody's different. Some people are desperate for money. So if you're getting paid by Chainlink a couple of $1,000s to hate on XRP, you're pathetic. Honestly, you're worse than scum. And if you're hating on the XRP ledger as a crypto influencer for no apparent reason, you're not the most smartest person in the room, you're the most dumbest person in the room. And if you're backing Swift, well, good luck with that dinosaur. And Litecoin, sit the F back down. Why the hell is even Litecoin coming out of the woodworks for no apparent reason trying to jump on the XRP hate bandwagon? Seriously, Litecoin, sit the F back down. I don't even know why you're getting involved in this conversation. Who the F uses Litecoin? So, on that note, honestly, don't even for a second doubt XRP or XRP Ledger's future. Even for a second. Or Ripple's future. On that note, we have reached the endings of tonight's live. Hope you all enjoyed tonight's live show. I am on the meds, which is, on the side of I have a very short temper. Love you all. This was episode 365 of the CMF Live. That means we've reached 365 episodes, which is incredible. That means we've done 1 year of episodes. Celebrate tomorrow for episode 366 of the CMF Live. Everybody have an amazing weekend. This was the CMF Live, episode 365. The CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news on cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And the disclaimer of this live also is not financial advice, not political advice, whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Just to mention that again, just in case I missed it. So, I'll save break tomorrow, same time as usual, 10 p.m. long time onwards. Let's go inside the comment section before we do go. Let's see what's happening there. I love it when you speak facts and call people morons. Okay, let's go a bit more because I think I missed quite a lot of questions. Okay, we're here. Sorry, Miles, I had to jump out. Not sure if you mentioned XDC and Kraken, and now Canadians can finally buy XDC with ease. Just picked up some today. Let's go. That's good news on XDC. Sorry, Miles, I'm so over the hate of Ripple and XRP. They are clearly threatened by them. It's worse than high school bullying. Facts, what Shelly has just said. I approaches XDC2, I think, is a winner. Facts. I wholeheartedly agree. Facts. You're 100% right. Let's go. Facts. Then they're all nervous about Ripple getting a banking license. End of story. Facts. What JP has just said. Anyone believes these morons, please let me purchase your XRP and XLM. Let's go, Scott. Miles, if these folks truly did their own research, the knowledge they'd gain would be negative to the stupidity they read. Facts. I love it when you speak facts and call people morons. Let's go autistic. It's true that Swift sees Ripple as a competitor, but if Ripple sees Swift as anything, it's a joke. Facts. I commented back at one of these videos saying, nah, tells me that they're afraid of Ripple. But then, why even bother? Also facts. Let's go, Stormy. The news about banks does not going to work with XRP is since 2018 factual today. The banks does not like XRP. Miles is what? Miles, what do you think about Swift? Miles is cooking. Miles is Swift. Miles is spitting facts today. Let's go. Can we get XRP/Gemini credit card in Britain? Possibility. Swift are like the old retired boxer who sees a new stronger boxer coming in and beating everyone who's much faster and stronger. XRP facts. Let's go, Peg. We can't talk intelligently to a fool. Miles, facts. Preach, Miles. Let's go, Peg. Miles, thank you for keeping us on track with the news. No problem, Susie, anytime. Miles, actions speak louder than words. It's best to stay silent in front of fools. I agree. Let's go, Funky Brother. I wish I could get an XRP credit card. Miles, speaking facts, Ripple is unstoppable. Let's go, XRP baby. Let's go, Scott. I never called anyone a moron until I joined the CMF. Now I tell dumb influencers they are morons all the time. Let's go, Joe. They can talk to me or about me as I sit on the beach, and I plan to how to let XRP generational wealth for my family. Let's go, Scott. Miles. No, just wait for the decoupling from Bitcoin. It will see who will lead the way. Facts. Tell them like it is, Miles. Let's go, Peg. Let's go, Stormy. Night, Miles. Pablo, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual. Woohoo. Let's go, Susie. Great live tonight. It's good to have you back. So stay healthy. Will you? Long good night, Miles. And see you tomorrow, same time. Artistic, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Have a great night, everyone. Stormy, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles, and all CMF. Thank you for a great live and news. JP, let's go see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Get well soon, and thank you for sharing generously, Miles. Have a lovely night all. Let's go, Lena. Ripple team are miles ahead of the pack. They are the most intelligent team on the crypto space. Facts. Let's go, brother. Guys, let's hold Miles back. He's coming out of the 9th round of the knockout blow. Miles, night. Good night, Peg. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Miles, great live, Miles. Thank you. Glad you're feeling better. Good night, Miles and CMF. Good night, everyone. Thanks, Miles. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Good night, Miles, and take care. Funky Butters. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Congratulations on episode 365. Let's go. Thank you, Scott. Good night, Miles. Thanks for your live show. Thanks for your hard work, my friend. Let's go, Carl. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Good night, Miles. Thanks for another great evening. Adi, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Let's go, Miles. And good night, brother. Let's go, Cali. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. I like your short tempo. Let's go, XRP. Mike, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Share the live and comments. Scott, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometime as usual. Great live. Take care, Miles and CMF. Ray, see you tomorrow, sometime as usual. You have morals, Miles. That's why. Thank you for calling out, Miles. I appreciate all you do for us. I love it when you get passionate about this. Let's go, Shelly. See you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. What a brilliant live we had today. I was pissing myself listening to Miles on meds. Night, everyone. Joe, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, good night, bro. You are on fire tonight. Great show. Let's go, Bill XRP. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. My mentor has moles. Let's go, Scott. Have a great one, everyone. Hold tight. Simple. Let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, family and friends. Share the live, Scott. Let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you, Miles, for great information. Have a good night. Call us. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, brother. Come on. Good to see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well, brother. Miles was rare from tonight. Yay. Let's go, Scott. Night all. Let's go, Shelly. Thank you for your parents. Thank your parents for me. They gave you a blessing inside the crypto environment. Let's go, Scott. Honestly, thank you so much to everybody from the CMF that tunes in every single night into these CMF lives. And thank you so much to everybody who liked and retweeted this live. Most importantly, if you haven't liked and retweeted this live, please like and retweet this live, CMF members. It genuinely means a lot to me when everybody likes and retweets these lives. It helps with the algorithm. Also, if you put a comment outside the live as well. And thanks so much to everyone who's also liked the live on YouTube. If you followed and subscribed during this live, thank you so much. And welcome to CMF. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual, 10 p.m. London time onwards. Have a great day or night, wherever you are around the world, CMF members. Love you all. See you all tomorrow.